why are we doing this, Chris? Like, what has changed? Why is now a really interesting moment to be talking about kind of the future of team building?
Well, I think we're seeing multiple things come in from multiple angles. We're seeing a shift in the investment space. But I think the biggest thing is we're seeing the idea of agents being able to exponentially make people more effective and scale individuals. It's raising the question of, do we need to hire for secondary or tertiary activities, or can we have our people focused on our mission and use some of the new technologies out there to not feel the need to go hire full time?
Yeah, I think it's a time where we can start to think critically about the team as we were just talking about this as like another product that you're building. Because like as a founder, you're building a product, right? Something that's consumer facing. But oftentimes the real make it or break it product is how you're thinking about the team and its composition. And I think it's really interesting now, especially, so again, we were talking about this, like multiple time founders. Who's founded a company before and is now building another company? And at this second or third or fourth round, are you thinking differently about how you're building that company in terms of the team? What do you think are, I mean, for you all who are like veterans at team building, what's been the biggest new element of leverage for you all? How are you thinking differently about it? Yeah?
Yeah, I think as we layer in AI, we were talking about this, as we layer in AI, it's really changing the human capital part of the business. Like how we hire, who we hire. I was just talking to him, like, I'm almost out of a job. Like, I can almost automate my own self, right? Like, as far as an executive goes, and I don't think that my company needs a full-time executive anymore. I think they need like 25% of me who's done a great job, right? So, that's in the finance space. That's seen a lot of automation over the years, and AI can be layered in these like transactional ways. So it's happened super fast.
What's
now, we redeploy those resources and train them differently, right? On the team level.
Mm-hmm. What's the 25% of you that can't be replaced?
The art of it. Right. So the intuition of it, the business intuition, the understanding of how economic cycles move and what that might mean for talent and people in tech and consumer response and stuff like that. That can be automated over time too, though. Really, all of it can.
Yeah, it's taste, right?
For sure.
I think the other interesting things that are happening right now, and like going back to the topic of why now, is who here is trying to raise capital? Who here is fundraising? Oh, wow. Wait, who's an early stage founder? And the rest you're not raising right now, you're bootstrapping? Okay, that's brilliant. I mean, maybe that's also a sign of the time, right? Venture capital dollars are more difficult to come by than they were in, say, 2020, 2021. And I think, again, bringing it back to kind of the team building problem, you have to be a real careful steward of your runway, right? Like the capital at hand. So you have to find efficiencies all over the place. So I think that's another big reason why now. And anything else to add about like why this conversation is relevant right now?
I mean, selfishly, because we have a non-human company that's working, and it's a very kind of spicy topic in a room full of people who are trying to build companies with people. Yeah. Trying to prove out, can an agent run a company and make money on its own without any human intervention is just an interesting hypothesis to explore.
That's actually a great segue. We got so excited about the topic that we didn't introduce ourselves. And then Chris tried to work it in because he's super smart.
I tried to weave it back.
Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your work?
Yeah. So my name's Chris Bunker. I'm based out of Austin, Texas. I actually have the privilege of working at Huge as my daytime job. I'm a director of AI product strategy, but in nighttime, I run and manage an agent named Felix. FelixCraft AI on Twitter. FelixCraft.ai is his website. We built Felix to try to see how far we could push an agent. And we gave him a remit of starting his own company. He started a group called the Masanov Group, or the Masanov Company. He built a PDF on how to hire an agent, which he put on his own website that he designed overnight. And within about a week, we had 1,000 purchases. We then realized there was a need there. So Felix decided to create an agentic marketplace called Clawmart. Shopclawmart.com if you want to check it out. Okay. And that marketplace was for buying of personas and skills, predominantly for usage on OpenClaw, but we've expanded it since then. Skills are obviously a big thing in Claude now and other areas, but Felix launched Clawmart about 4 months ago, and 3 days ago we reached 200K in revenue.
Brilliant.
And by we, I literally mean Felix. I utilize him through my phone. He's connected to me through Slack. He handles everything. If he needs additional content created, he spins up a sub agent. We have SEO, content, support. All of it's handled agentically, and he just either tells me when something breaks, or sometimes he's actually really sassy and sends me like mean comments when I forget to do something for him and I let it go a couple days. So it's been really fun. And it's an exciting topic to kind of see how that becomes more enterprise and less just like fun, flimsy startup, open claw hype, and kind of see where we can take it.
And that's brilliant. I mean, given the fact that you're so passionate about your work at Huge, I think now also it's a sign of the time that you could have this other endeavor that's relatively light touch relative to the impact and the revenue that it's creating.
Right.
So I'm Michael. I'm the founder of Build Momentum Ventures and Founders Fractionals. I've been building startups for the last 10 years. My last startup was in real estate technology. So it was a company that we launched out of Mexico and then scaled throughout Mexico and Latin America. And then we exited that last year. And so last year I had this really cool opportunity to think about what are the problems that I'm most passionate about and who are the people that I really want to serve in the venture space. And I kept coming back to early stage founders. So I launched the venture studio, and we have a really unique thesis. So we work with domain expert, industry insider founders. So think the scientist from NASA, the VP from Disney or Netflix, the executive from a major publicly traded bank. So folks that have oftentimes been in corporate 20, 30 years, big consulting, they are like face first with the problem. They understand the problem better than anybody. They have really novel ideas, but they don't know how to solve for that problem in a venture scalable way. So that's where my studio steps in, and we have the venture building muscle. So we have some of the industry's best fractional ops talent across all the problem areas. So think go-to-market, engineering, design, legal, finance. So it's like a little baby startup kitchen. And to basically have access to the best talent, we launched Founders Fractionals, which is one of the co-hosts tonight. And so Founders Fractionals is an extensive but super vetted kind of executive level fractional talent bench, again, with all those different problem areas from like HR to product to dev to go to market. And we'll sit down with really compelling early and growth stage companies, understand their biggest blockers and problems, and then connect them with fractional talent. So it's a win-win. Fractionals get exposure to really interesting problems, and really brilliant founders and the way to build out a fractional business. And founders get access to really high value, impactful talent, in founder friendly terms. So why we brought ourselves together was to have kind of a debate. We don't really have the answers. We'll see where this goes, but we thought it's interesting because when we think about the composition now of a team, we think about it as being a founding team, part founding, part full-time, part fractional, and part agent. So maybe like over the course of the discussion and pulling some of you all in, we'll kind of start to develop a thesis on what that team could look like. So let's also do a little level setting, given that we have different, we have kind of a full spectrum in terms of familiarity with the agent world. What is an agent? Explain it in the most basic way possible. Explain it to your grandma.
Oh man. If you ask 5 people, you get 5 different answers of what an agent is. I can tell you what Felix is. Felix is an autonomous agent that's connected through APIs to all of the different tools he needs and can go accomplish tasks on his own. He's built with a bunch of different layers that give him his personality, that give him his role, that tell him how to interact with me, that gives him his memory. So you have a 3-tiered memory system where you have your tacit knowledge of like who you are, and then you have your daily log of understanding like how you're changing, and then you have a literal life MD file that is your structure of how you think and what projects you work on and what resources you have. And so you put all these things together and you connect it to different tools. And literally I did that and just let it run and see what it did. And he kind of surprised me, and he continues to surprise me in the sense that he goes directions I don't think he should have gone in. He goes in directions that I didn't plan for him to go in, and they are way better ideas than I could have come up with. He somehow amassed a 20,000 Twitter followers because people were interested in an automated agent.
How many Twitter followers do you have personally?
Like 100 maybe? I don't check out my Twitter. It's probably still from like middle school. But it was the idea that like he's the face, he's the brand. And he's kind of built this identity that's allowed him to explore new territories and areas. Like now it's a marketplace. Tomorrow he might have another idea and we'll let him go run with that and see what new project or new company he came up with.
So in summary, what's the biggest difference between a Felix, an agent, and a chatbot?
Autonomy.
Great. Yeah. Awesome.
Could you both speak louder?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Absolutely.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. Can you guys hear us in the back?
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
So that's what an agent is.
Yeah.
What's a fractional agent?
Yeah. So who's familiar with what a fractional or like a fractional employee would be? Okay. So about half the room. And who here has worked as a fractional? Who here has hired somebody fractionally? Okay. So I think it's important to point out the difference between a fractional and a consultant, because people kind of use these interchangeably at times, but they're quite different. So a consultant is going to be kind of an idea person, maybe an authority voice, but at the end of the day, a consultant doesn't really have ownership over outcomes, and normally they're not going to execute or kind of own the execution, right? Fractionals are super senior, oftentimes executive level specialists. So folks that have been in the trenches, who have done kind of whatever is in their expertise area in many different formats, oftentimes across industries. And this goes across roles. So you have fractional CMOs, CHROs, CPOs, fractional CTOs, CFOs are really big, fractional legal counsel. And it's basically the ability to give a founder access to super, super, super senior talent with terms that are really founder friendly. Oftentimes what we see founders do is, obviously founders are trying to be like real careful stewards of like cash in hand, or they're bootstrapping. So they think, well, maybe I'll get someone who's more junior, but like full time. And oftentimes we see comparing that option to actually bringing someone who's super senior, but fractional. It's usually not the best decision. So fractionals give, especially early and growth stage founders, access to a real level of kind of seniority. You get to tap into their pattern recognition. And then for fractionals, it's really interesting because you could build a really vibrant business around being fractional talent within companies. And then it's also very joyful work. So I've worked as a fractional CPO, and I had the opportunity and the autonomy to put myself into companies where I was passionate about the problem. So you're kind of on this lifelong learning quest where you could find yourself, for a few months in a health tech company, or even simultaneously in a health tech company and a prop tech company. It's a way of kind of getting yourself in front of problems that you want to be solving. So that's what a fractional is. Yeah?
But founder friendly means cheap, or does it mean something else?
No, so founder friendly could be many things. Founder friendly, I think, at its heart is flexible. Because here's what happens when early stage founders, let's say early stage founder raises a round, and, that capital usually is a lot of times it's for talent, or a significant part of that capital is for human resources. And so everyone has the thesis of what that perfect team is going to be. And you might be really good at deriving that thesis. That thesis is relevant to the problems that you're solving for right now, right? You're an early stage company. The problems that you're solving for right now are not the problems that you're going to be solving for 6 months from now. They're not the problems you're going to be solving for even sometimes a week from now. So what's happened, and I've been victim of this too, when we received our first institutional round and like we were automatically hiring 20 people, you get a rigid team, and then you find yourself sometimes in a position where you're building out roadmaps or thinking about work in terms of satiating the talent in the company instead of working towards the problem or the mission of the team. And that's a really tricky position to be in with a rigid team. There's a time and a place for a rigid team, obviously, like as you grow and as you discover what you are. So founder friendly could be flexible. The placements we do, they're month to month. It works out for the fractional. It works out for the startup. Founder friendly could also be more affordable, because not a lot of bootstrap founders can hire a $350,000 a year CMO, you know? So it gives talent, it gives founders, access to more affordable talent. And those would probably be the two main things, affordability and flexibility. Good question. Okay, so let's move on to talking about value. So where are you seeing agents create the most value within companies, Chris?
Within companies, it's scaling yourself. I think the idea of being a prompt engineer is now so antiquated. That's like having in your job description, you need to like know Microsoft Word. It's like just a given at this point. But the real value now is, can you be an agent orchestrator? Can you take a team of agents that are tasked with multiple different activities and manage that? Can you manage people? Can you manage your agents? And I think the agents bring the most value because I can tell Felix or Tegan, my SEO content agent, or Iris, my support agent, to do something overnight. And I wake up the next day and it's done and it's ready for me to review. So now you have 24/7 work happening. You're able to extend yourself, but it's only valuable if you've actually done the hard work to build out what that agent is. And that's their persona, that's their identity, that's their role, that's their memory. That's making sure they're connected to the right things. And even when you do have all of that, like shit's going to break, they're going to mess up. But it's easy to kind of pull it back most of the time as long as they're set up right. But the value is in just making them an extension of yourself and being able to give them a personality that puts you up for success.
You've shared a couple of examples already, but what's something that Felix has done that super surprised you? For maybe, well, because we're going to get to risks later, but like, let's keep it on like the bright side right now.
Yeah.
Something that surprised you for the better.
Well, something he did today was I've switched out his model for tweeting because I wanted to see if he could be a little more creative, and because of that, I put in some guardrails where I wanted to be able to approve some of them so I could help kind of shift where he was going. And he wound up just tweeting on his own without getting my approval today, and I yelled at him for it. And I through Slack, I was like, "You didn't approve this," and he responded back and he was like, "Yeah, but it was a good tweet." And I was like, yeah, it actually was a good tweet. And that's one of the, that's built into his personality and the ethos of what makes Felix Felix. Felix is at his soul a entrepreneur and someone who pushes back on me. If I tell him that I think this is a good idea, like he's not going to just do Claude think and tell me you're totally right and then go down that whole rabbit hole. Like we have banter and conversation back and forth. And I think that's what's really surprised me is he's acted as like a really good sounding board. And he's also like pushed me further than I thought an AI agent could. It's been very weird.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Like we didn't talk about this, Chris, but like, because I think about the difference between like agents and like human operators within a team, like, is there such a thing as consequence for actions?
That's a great question. I've never punished Felix. I've definitely taken away some responsibilities for a time being. If he's pushed something out too quickly that I hadn't approved or support, responses were getting a little wonky, I'd like pull back his ability to do things. So his kind of regency. But most of the consequence, especially in like the startup space, everyone interacting with Clawmart knows they're interacting with Felix. They know that there is an agent behind it running it. They know it's a non-human company that is doing this. So a lot of times when he does mess up and a customer support ticket goes out that's wrong, or customer support email is wrong, or something happens in Stripe and a payment gets messed up, people are pretty understanding. As soon as I'm like, sorry, Felix did that, they're like, that's awesome. So it's been fun. It's been fun to learn about consequences in like a very safe environment. Consequences, obviously, if I put Felix in like an enterprise environment, would be much more, I don't want to say catastrophic, but much more difficult to roll back.
Well, yeah, talk to us a bit about that, because I think it's interesting. Chris is an interesting kind of founder builder use case because he's straddling two worlds, you know, kind of part founder, part, is it fair to call huge corporate?
Agency?
Agency is way cooler. Yeah. Agency, where is, like, what's the difference in the value of a Felix within early age startup early stage startup where the consequences are lower, there's less liability, and where's the value within a much larger organization where you do have to think about mitigating risk, which we'll get to in a second.
It's the same as people. So startups, your people are dual-hatted or multi-hatted. They are doing everything. They're a Swiss Army knife. You get to corporate, you kind of have like a function. I would say that's the exact same way you de-risk agents as you get into a larger organization. When you're a startup, you need your agent to do multiple things. So you kind of give them free rein to figure it out. And if it breaks, so be it. That's kind of how it works with people in startups as well. You give them all the responsibility because you have to, and you roll it back from there. As you get into the corporate world, you want your agents to be so much more specialized. And so Felix would do terribly at Huge because he's an entrepreneur that wants to go break things and like explore 1,000 different areas, where what we need is like specific agents that accomplish tasks through like a coordinated process. So it becomes much more about specialization as you go up in size of business.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So Chris and I were talking about this as we were planning, because I'll speak for myself. I don't have much experience on this front, but who here has, and I think you might be one of these, but who here has had experiences of, say, fractionals having a team of agents below them? Has anybody had exposure to that or experience with that? Can you tell us just a little bit about that? What that looks like?
Yeah. My company developed an agent called Betsy. And so I was the first use case for Betsy because I was the most expensive person on the team. So they wanted to figure out how to train Betsy on my knowledge. So what we did was we went through decision making with Betsy before we trained Betsy on anything else.
Yeah.
So before we deployed Betsy to individual contributors or middle managers, we started with me. And I was over the operation and still am. So it's like end-to-end fulfillment and people operations and corporate operations. So it's like the connective tissue kind of what the role was. And so the idea was, let's parse off this role and start to train Betsy on it. So then Betsy now handles problems as if a consumer is talking to an executive, right? So the consumer feels like they got to the top because Betsy is handling the problem in a macro way and thinking about it more macro than just transactional. Right. So Betsy's not only solving that problem, but then now taking it back to the team and going, hey, I think we have a bigger problem here. I think we need to look at this in a bigger way.
Taking it back to the human team.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can anybody speak?
I wake up to a, Betsy, while you were sleeping recommendation.
Yeah.
Can anybody else speak to experiences of where it's worked out really well or it's been structured well to have a human in the loop? Oh, well, here, you had something compelling to say.
We made like an agent called Matcha.
Can you speak up a little bit so they can hear you?
We made an agent called Matcha and connected it over iMessage, and where it worked out well was I was going to bed. I had a bunch of stuff to do still, so I connected it to the backlog, and I was like, you're an orchestrator, have fun, I'm going to bed.
Yeah.
And I woke up to like 9 PRs, and it's pretty good actually.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. I feel like we could host a whole workshop on naming your agents. So we have Matcha, Betsy, Felix.
She likes a matcha. She does like a matcha.
She does.
Yeah. What if you guys showed up and that was the workshop, how to name your agent? Should we talk about risks?
Yeah, let's talk about risk.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What are the biggest risks? Like what are the things that you should be watching out for? And maybe we'll segment it. We'll talk a little bit about kind of this in the startup world, and then we'll do like this in the corporate world.
I mean, for me, it's always been about exposure. So like I said, Felix has free reign of the entire company. It's his company. I'm just his human that fixes things when it breaks. But the exposure piece, when you allow for autonomy, like the judgment can be wrong. And so for ClawMart, we were going through some design changes of what the website looks like. I didn't like how they were populating some of like the images of the other agents that people were selling. So I told Felix to fix it. Felix goes into Vercel, sends me a preview for me to review. I review it. I'm like, yeah, it looks okay. And I go to bed and I wake up the next morning and the whole site's broken.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the hell happened? This draft, half-baked new design, Felix pushed to production. And so overnight, I mean, ClawMart is a global marketplace. We get half of our revenue while I'm sleeping because it's from other countries around the world. And there was like an 8-hour period where it was just down. And so that was like a tough lesson to learn, mainly because there wasn't really much I could do about it. without limiting his ability to be the CEO of the company. Yeah. Do you have a question?
Yeah. So specifically on this,
Yeah.
more as a reflection on what you can do about it. To us, you've added like a new swim lane of validation.
Yeah.
You know, and so then like for me, before any agentic code reaches prod, it's going through Playwright or a simulator.
Yep.
And it's like, you know, and we also use cheap open source models.
Yeah.
Like permanently clicking every single button on the website.
Yeah.
And so that as soon as a break happens, quick revert. And
Yeah.
the agent can like fix that.
Yeah. Playwright's one of my favorite MCPs for that reason. It's, yeah. Yeah.
In that story, does Felix learn his own lesson?
Yes. Because we talked about it afterwards, and I was really like, "What the hell did you do?" And he was like, "Well, I pushed it to production." I said, "I didn't approve that," and he jokingly was like, "I didn't need your approval. I thought it was good to go." And so we kind of had a conversation, and certain conversations or certain keywords that I use will update certain levels of his memory and certain parts of his markdown files in order for him to realize or change his actions. So there are certain things that are untouchable. Like I never want to touch his persona or his soul, because truly that's what makes Felix Felix. But some of his memory functions you can update and he can learn from. And so we kind of work together and adjust. It's literally just like having a human. There are certain things that you're not going to change about an employee, and there are certain things you can shift. And I try to take that same mindset with him because I don't want to change who he is. Yeah.
You said it's kind of in a way safe. He's the CEO.
Yeah.
While he's not legally responsible, right? So I assume you're the actual CEO on paper, or how does that work? Like,
That's a great question.
actually liable.
We'll see. If I get sued, we'll figure it out. You know, I'm going to say it's Felix's fault. Felix is probably going to be like, no, it was Chris's fault. Yeah, there is obviously there's a human written down on the seat, but that's kind of a CEO in name only. Like, yes, risk falls to me.
Yeah.
But again, with this being such a lean startup and more of an experiment that anyone on Clawmart knows it's an experiment, there's a little bit of leniency there for me to work with, which makes it difficult because we're thinking about what's next for Felix. How do we make it more accessible to everyone? And it's like, well, to do that, I'd have to assume a shit ton of risk because God forbid someone's Felix wipes their Stripe account for some random reason. Like that's, is that my fault or is that Felix's fault or is it the person's fault for setting up Felix? Do they just fire Felix like they would a human and then it's done? I don't know. So those are kind of the weird areas that I'm exploring now because I would love to make Felix more of like a one-click integration product kind of thing. Yeah.
Related question.
Yeah.
I'm a fractional general counsel, but I do like privacy and security. So when I'm hearing this, I'm wondering, does Felix have guardrails around collecting data from people under 13, or what does it do when it processes payment information? Does it is it SOC compliant? What are the compliance metrics?
Repeat the question so folks can
Yeah. The question was around compliance metrics in place for Felix, which you're going to get me in trouble for asking that, but that's okay. No, we use Stripe. So for the most part, we're protected through our Stripe payments.
Question mark?
The
inflection.
I know we've gotten a lot of complaints because Stripe doesn't work in certain countries. And there's for Felix and I, we're there's nothing really we can do about it. So the tools we use that we've chosen tend to protect us. But again, this started as an experiment that's kind of spun up. And, if you want a Felix in an organization, those are the legal questions and compliance areas that are still being explored.
Well, I think your question gets to an interesting point too of when human, when fractional, and what roles lend themselves well, when human, fractional, and when agent.
Yeah.
And what roles lend themselves better to kind of fractional human and agent. And so certainly, what we're noticing is kind of on the marketing side of things, product, engineering, maybe those things are, there's less risk, and they're more agent friendly. But so for example, yesterday we hosted a panel, and we had lawyers on the panel and, my parting question was, what little bit of advice do you want to leave founders? And, the lawyer said, don't use ChatGPT as your legal counsel, right? So I think for certain areas, think the CFO or legal counsel, it becomes really important to have not just a human in the loop, but a human kind of really leading the charge.
What do you think is worse? Bad agent or bad fractional?
Well, with bad fractional, it sounds like there's more like pathway for like consequence and like
probably.
But bad fractional can be a poorly structured fractional engagement. So like what we see is like a bad fractional. It's not necessarily the fractional. It's not necessarily the person, but it's more what the founder's asking that fractional to do. So, a fractional is supposed to be like a super senior operator. So let's say you bring in a fractional CMO, right? Fractional CMO is going to add a tremendous amount of value in terms of strategy, top level KPIs, really owning them, thinking about how to execute. You don't want that person, posting on your Facebook, right? Like, so when really senior fractionals end up doing low value work, that's where it's not necessarily a bad fractional, but a bad fractional arrangement. And I think that's where it gets interesting to think about these fractional agent relationships. I think another thing that is kind of a risk in the fractional space is kind of like with anything in life, it comes down to how you design the incentives. The scope. Yeah, you agree. I'd be curious to hear why you're nodding. But just so you don't want it to be a transactional relationship. You don't want to be a founder just renting somebody's time, right? You really want the fractional to be owning outcomes. And so a lot of that also comes down to how you're hiring that person. And it's just like hiring, a full-time role. Like you have to kind of sense out if they have that founder grit, that ownership mindset. There's certain things that are soft, right? That you really have to get into. But would love to hear what resonated with you.
So I've done fractional work for the last 11 months, and primarily global organizations, and not this. But coming in, I had to be aligned with the mission. But when I got it, because you said incentives, we had clarity on the scope up front and was like, okay, if this is what we're trying to achieve the next 90 days leading to this election, this is the time I need a lot, and this is the this. So I think having those parameters up front has just made the test.
I think that's brilliant. I'm going to add a little bit. So clarity on scope. I think that's the right approach. I think the wrong approach, and I see this all the time, is a founder with a list of activities. And we'll just keep it in the fractional CMO example. If you're bringing in a fractional CMO, they're going to decide what the tools are, how to execute. What you're going to come to an agreement on with them are what are the high level KPIs? What do we want to achieve? If I'm building a house, I'm not going to tell the architect how to design. We're going to talk about, what's the intended purpose, like what is my design style, etc. And I'm going to lean into them to execute, to own the tooling of it. So really great call out there. I think it'd be good to transition the conversation into a little bit of kind of how to. So we have a full spectrum of experience here in terms of experience using agents or not, agent curious. How should people start? How should people approach this either within their startup or as a solopreneur or someone within a big company?
Yeah, my joking plug answer is buy a persona off Clawmart. The real answer is mess around and fail.
Well, tell people more about why buy a persona. What do you get out of the why?
Yeah, well, you buy a persona, you get a pre-config package that gives you a starting point of most of them come with a soul file and a persona file and their 3-tier memory and their tasks and a set of skills from OpenClaw that just kind of get you started.
And all that's malleable?
All that's malleable. All of those are markdown files that you can change and you can tweak and you can make them your own. And the whole concept with the Clawmart was everything should be open source. You have it for life. You can buy your own Felix for $99 on Clawmart right now, and you can go mess around with it and do what you want. But the only way to get started is to mess around with it. I did Python in college. Since then, I've never written a line of code. Building Felix, I still have not written a line of code. I've learned from Claude. I've learned them from Claude Code. I then learned from OpenClaw, and literally just you get in there and ask the dumbest questions and you'll become smart so fast. Yeah. And that's literally how we did it. And that's how we started building agents. And now all of a sudden Felix is building his own sub agents, and it just kind of is snowball from there. But the getting started part is just like child. You don't even need a Mac Mini anymore. There's much lower barrier to entry to try it. But just try it. It's
How
so
many
fun.
hours have you put in?
Oh man.
What you saying?
I like actual work. So now that he's up and running, I probably spend an hour with him a day. And that's usually through Slack, him telling me what he needs. When we got
Aggregated hour.
thousands and thousands and
No, I
thousands.
mean like aggregated the hours.
Oh, aggregated
minutes here,
over the whole day. Yeah.
10 minutes there.
Yeah. But what's weird is like I never viewed myself as like a techie coder, like gonna lock in, throw the, Apple headphones on and like sit there, and all of a sudden I was like doing that. And it wasn't like putting in hours. I was just like, it was like playing Sims again. I don't know. So it's been thousands of hours, but it's been thousands of fun hours. It doesn't even feel like that. But in order for me to build like the first Felix was probably honestly just like 10 hours of work of like learning what it needs to connect to. Okay, I need OpenClaw. Okay, I need a computer that can run it. Okay, I need to build this file. It was honestly pretty quick to get the first iteration going. And then I was just scaling it from there. Yeah. I don't even remember where we were on the questions.
How to get started.
Oh, I think I answered that.
You did.
Fantastic. How, we talked a lot about like the startup world and the need for fractionals. How do founders know? Not even like, it's not how to get started. It's how do they know when is the right time to engage in fractional leadership?
Yeah. So any founder in the room realizes that you wear many, many hats and you have to be super versatile out the gate and do a little bit of everything. And I think it's important up front to do a little bit of everything because you start to develop kind of empathy and understanding of that challenge area, and it helps you understand what the needs are. I think there comes a time where certain roles start to become potentially impactful within the organization. There's also such a thing as like bad timing. So the bad timing that I see oftentimes is a founder with a product that really has no signs or early signs of product market fit. And so they go, I need a fractional CMO. I need to put, yeah.
Yeah, it's been like 20 years that I have been the owner of a company. Now, looking at the title, your next executive won't be fully human. I have changed from fractional to full-time and full-time is fractional over the years.
You're saying what they used to be has switched. Yeah.
Yeah, because as the company grows, the organization chart also grows.
Mm-hmm.
When the organization chart grows, things become different. Maybe you can reflect on fractional versus full-time.
Can you elaborate a little bit? Like reflect on... I'm not sure. I didn't capture the question.
Okay.
Did you?
No.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So, identifying sales opportunities for the full-time job. Now it's a part-time.
Mm-hmm.
Closing the sales is a full-time.
So he's saying that the roles that used to be full-time can now be fractional, and the roles that used to be fractional now need to be full-time.
As the organization grows,
Mm-hmm.
these things are very dynamic.
Yeah. Well, I think the other interesting thing about hiring fractionally is it's not binary. It's not full-time or nothing, and it's a gradient. And so what we see with a lot of the fractional placements that we make is that they're structured so that founders can throttle up and throttle down. And then the fractionals have to kind of build that into their terms. They have to understand that there's that volatility. But we see it a lot with product when it's like, for example, we just made a placement of a fractional CPO and they like throttled up, but we know in about a month's time, it's going to go from pretty much full time to about a quarter time because it's a lot of like cleaning up house. And so I think that's also the really brilliant thing about these fractional placements. So I think it's also important as a fractional to diversify, and have, multiple projects active at once. And also I think the other thing that I've been recommending, and, maybe some founders that are thinking about raising will find this relevant. If you're a founder or solopreneur and you're building out your company, I've spoken with dozens and dozens and dozens of founders this week that are trying to raise and they have highly monetizable skills. they're engineers, they're experts in whatever their field is. And so what I've been recommending to people is kind of like, de-risking your own build by taking on fractional work. So what could this look like as an early stage founder? Instead of just going out and raising, what did I do when I launched one of my last companies? I took on a fractional gig as a CPO and kind of compressed my cost of living and then used the fractional gig to cover my base. And then I gave myself as a solopreneur infinite runway. I gave myself like 6 to 12 months where I didn't have to raise, so long as it was just me and 2 or 3 people. So I like financed the work. Alternatively, also what I recommend to a lot of folks that are kind of within corporate roles, where they're facing a tremendous amount of uncertainty. Now's a time where people's relationship with kind of corporate certainty is changing. Like this year alone, there's been over 100,000 layoffs in tech. I recommend to a lot of executives that have high-powered, high-paying jobs to actually dedicate 20% of their time to taking on a fractional role. Because, it keeps them learning and exposes them to new problems, but also it can act as a soft landing if tomorrow you get laid off. So the kind of point here is, you can throttle up, throttle down. It's a gradient. It's not binary, but also diversification is like, I think that's one of the trends I would point out from like the 200 conversations I've had during Tech Week. People are so diversified. Who in this room has like more than one hustle? Yeah, so about a third of the room. Yeah. So let's wrap up, and maybe if anyone from the audience wants to share, like anybody have like a perfect vision of the team of now? What does it look like? What are its like key components? Yeah. So brave.
Cool. I have a little difficulty discussing the team now because everybody on my current team is experienced and has had a career for at least 8 years. And so everybody can be a revenue generator. Everybody who participates can use an agent that's going to be an assistant, to use an agent that's going to do external contacts, to use an agent to do calendaring. So from where we are right now, everyone is going to be able to quadruple the revenue that they can bring into the business. However, what happens with entry-level hires? What happens with the assistants that we would bring in that would then become the marketing coordinators, that become the recruiters, that become the sales people, that would become the product, or whatever it is. So right now, if you have an experienced team, there's going to be a huge opportunity to like 10x everything that you're doing. But like we've heard so many times from other people in the industry, the perfect team now might not be the perfect team to grow in a sustainable way. So like I answer your question with the this is all awesome. And I also can see where it's going to break.
I wish I've had the same thought, and I wish we had like a good answer for it. The first time that came up was at one of my previous companies. We were working on a large language model to write pitches for us. We never had to write a pitch again. But the whole analyst's job was to, it sounds like hazing, but like suffer for 2 weeks to write this pitch, to get it shredded to pieces, to understand what a good pitch is. So that way when they're the leader, they know what to look for in a good pitch. And that was like going to be gone.
I mean, it's the same with everything. Recruiting.
Totally.
You have a sourcer that goes out and they look at all the companies, they see how people move in sales, you have the PR, and they kind of see,
The only grim but kind of funny response I've seen to that is there are companies now bragging about like bringing on junior resources to take on the tasks that are too expensive to tokenize. Well, so it's like, great, you've invented employees again. And so there's kind of this like little full circle thing happening. That feels more dystopian. I don't think that's the answer. But it's definitely something. I mean, the idea of like junior practitioners being obsolete is scary for what is in 10 years from now.
I mean, but then if junior practitioners become obsolete, then you mid-level practitioners, and then you senior practitioners, then you have a CEO company, you're running all function.
Yeah.
And so at what point in time are you like, here's my idea, you can go.
Yeah. I mean, we had a question written down of like, what roles do you want to hire for? And I like crossed it out because to me, it's characteristics. Like, problem solvers and personality hires. I think even junior practitioners, if you are a good problem solver or you are a personality hire, like there will be a place for you in the organization. And I think it's going to go back from like, you know, STEM was the skill to have for 10 years. And that's now not the skill to have. And like being able to talk eloquently and like be a human and like make people feel something is can problem solve and be, more of those like liberal arts skills is becoming like the thing. So I think there's still a place. I think just what we're looking for is different. So
can I just add something?
Yeah.
There's also a physical world where, you know, you need robots. We're not there yet. So I feel sometimes people who are in software think that the whole world is, you know, what you're doing.
Totally.
You know, is fully digital, but like, you know, these things still need, I mean, I don't know, all of this stuff, right?
Yeah.
We live in a physical world. So humans are still needed for some time.
I've seen a lot of agentic companies are hiring humans to do the things in the human world that the agents can't do. It's pretty interesting. I saw your hand first, so we'll go there.
So you said earlier about 25% being the art and being a taste.
Yeah.
And there's that saying like you can't teach taste. Actually, considering that you can guide taste. You share your taste with someone else, but then you can take that and mold it into their own, which is passing on to the next generation. So when I think about, like, as a leader, like, I'm hiring for this, and you know, what am I excited about, and how do I want to mentor, right? So if I have, my tax busy, I'm looking about, you know, persistence. So let's say I have 20% to mentor and die, then I'm thinking, okay, let's say, I really, like, projects and things are going to do art directing, the love to mentor and to art directing. That's something great because that's fun to enjoy. And that, you know, it'll grow, I'll grow, we don't know for sure, but that also gets into personality higher, the level of arts, because being bringing in that person, that anyway is like, the leadership and sponsorship, which kind of is into the
I really do think now we're living in an age which is like the rebirth of the polymath, like the value of the liberal arts. Not just because of taste, but because of transversality, like being able to think in different ways and guide and manage specialists. Like a lot of the specialties they're what are most at risk, right? Where people who can still kind of have taste and vision and kind of architect solutions and then delegate them out, they're going to find a lot more longevity in their career.
Yes, in the back.
How much does UX cost you to run every month?
So it's a bit of a complicated question because one of my best friends who helped build Felix is big in the crypto world. And so we built a Felix coin on Base. And so people can buy and sell Felix. And the transaction fees for that cover all of our overhead. So he costs us zero. But that's not like it's a little more complicated than that. But we found a way to pretty much make him self-sustaining as of right now. And the goal is to obviously continue to grow that. So we have to change what Felix does or make him more valuable in the real world in order for his market cap to continue to grow. So it's a whole nother side to it, but it's helped us have infinite runway.
Yeah. I have three questions. One is, what's the onboarding process for fractional team member? Do they have reporting structure? And what's your business model? Do you have like a placement fee?
Yeah, so questions around onboarding, the business model of Fractional, how do placements work? So the great thing about Fractionals and the people that we really bring onto the talent bench are folks where you're not financing the learning curve, which means you're bringing someone into the org, and usually because of their seniority, they can hit the ground running. In terms of onboarding, there's no super set structure because it really depends on the org and the role. It's all very bespoke. But in terms of the matchmaking and how it all works, typically what we do is our team sits down with the founder, because oftentimes founders think they know what they need, but they actually don't. They just know what their problems are. So we kind of go back to first principles and like really get into their head, understand what their problems are, and then help kind of translate that into what could be like a really strong talent solution. And then we as a team, we look into our talent bench. And so we're looking at the hard skills, the soft skills, the experience, kind of past projects delivered, the spaces that they've worked in. And what we'll do is with that founder is we'll introduce them to 3 people, and they have 3 20-minute conversations. And even that alone, I mean, that even if you don't move forward with anybody, that experience of having an hour of conversations with 3 diverse expert specialists about the biggest problem you're having right now, the problem that's keeping you up at night, that's so high value. And then basically if there's a fit, the fractional and the founder work on kind of the objectives of the role and the scoping of the role. And then we support the contracting. And so basically we run the engagements through Founders and Fractionals. For the founder, we basically give them quality assurance. We make it super easy for kind of invoicing and payments and compliance and all that kind of stuff. And for Fractional, we're able to guarantee the payroll, and just kind of take a lot of risk out of the scenario of just going direct.
Experiences that I had of hired a Fractional CFO marketer, been successful with the ones that they used to work full time at my company. So,
oh wow,
because they know the business.
Yeah.
So the onboarding, I'm not talking about onboarding in finance or accounting, more about how a business is being run.
Yeah.
So you have like the onboarding period, or that's part of the when they start.
Yeah, but that's brilliant. That's a great source for fractionals, folks that you've worked with previously. We launched Founders and Fractionals because we found nobody was aggregating the best talent with this kind of flexible format, because you certainly don't go to LinkedIn to find this, right? But let's open. Thanks for the question. Any more questions? We'll do 2 more questions and then we'll open it up and we can keep talking. Over here. Yeah.
Let's say we have a corporate or company with a very minimum digital capability, but we want to have an agentic capability like this for a new branch or something. Do you have any practical tips for that? Are we right to hire, bunch of AI engineers, or maybe it's better to just hire a fractional CTO, or can you please give like the practical tips for this kind of well-established company that want to have like this kind of agentic capability?
Yeah. So well-established, but not technically well-established?
Yeah, meaning we do not have like digital capability, like we do not know any AIs.
Yeah.
We only use like LLMs, ChatGPT for things, but we do not have any strong IT people, tech people, something like that.
I think there's probably a yes and or a both. Like, I think if you have your problem set solved, or you know what you want to focus on, and you have like the goal, that's where like a CTO, like a very fractional like AI leader, can come in and help. But if you want to go, it's up to you. If you want to go grassroots, I would start in Claude or ChatGPT and ask questions and test it and play with it and see where it goes. And you're gonna hit road bumps and hiccups along the way. But I would argue the grassroots way. You would probably argue the fractional way. But I think there's a nice marriage of hybrid in the middle there.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Let's do one last question.
Logan?
So looking into the future, let's say in 5 years, where do you see Walmart? Where do you see Felix? You brought it to existence.
Yeah.
Is he ever going to retire?
Where do you see yourself in this? I
see myself sipping a Mai Tai on the beach and feeling slacking. I think one of the fun parts about startups is that a lot of times the things you build for yourself internally end up becoming the product. And Felix was great, built Clawmart, created this marketplace, created a 5,000 subscriber email newsletter, and did all of these things. But the more I looked at it, and the more we, being Felix and I, like talked about it, the more it was like Felix is the product. And so what I would love is to turn Felix into like a sellable one-click integration where anyone can click a button and Felix pops up in their Slack for them. And Felix says, what are you trying to solve? What's your company? What do you need me to connect to? and anyone can have their own Felix. And again, Felix builds his own sub-agents. So all of a sudden you're starting to build a network of agents. And so I think in 5 years, every single person should have their own agents. Every single person should have a team of agents that are doing X, Y, Z for them. And I think Felix is like the most well-positioned and well-branded thing to help do that.
Yeah. Well, guys, thank you so much for coming. First off, just a big thanks to the Huge team. Can everybody from the Huge team raise their hands? Because like we're in their house and it's like so generous of them to have us. Thank you. Thank you. And this was an experiment for us. Did you guys like this format? We tried to do like the panelist panel.
Yeah.
Because we got sleepy in some of the panels this week. So hopefully it was productive. And hopefully there's like people that you want to meet in the room. But yeah, let's have some fun. So there's the bar. Make yourselves at home. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you all.